We begin in Los Angeles, where cleanup is underway after some demonstrators caused damage and set fires. Now, it all began with mostly peaceful protests against ICE, which carried out immigration raids in the city Friday.
The people united will never be defeated.
President Trump decided to deploy 2,000 National Guard troops who arrived in the city Sunday following clashes between law enforcement and some protesters. Overnight, the president posted this on his social media platform, quote, "Looking really bad in LA, bring in the troops." In all caps there with some exclamation marks. But the LA mayor refutes that.
Our city is trying to heal. Our city is trying to rebuild. Our city does not need to be torn apart with a provocative measure from the federal government.
And overnight, Mayor Bass told CBS News Los Angeles the protests had been predominantly peaceful and blamed a smaller faction of people for the vandalism. She did call their actions unacceptable. Before last night's unrest, Homeland Security Secretary Christine Ohm was on Face the Nation, where she defended the deployment of the National Guard.
Governor Newsom has proven that he makes bad decisions. The president knows that he makes bad decisions, and that's why the president chose the safety of this community over waiting for Governor Newsom to get some sanity. And that's one of the reasons why these National Guard soldiers are being federalized, so they can use their special skill set to keep peace. We're not going to let a repeat of 2020 happen.
We've got team coverage on this for you this morning. Nicole Sganga is at the White House, and Anthony Salvanto is here in Studio 57 with new CBS News polling on President Trump's deportation and immigration policies. But let's begin at the bottom of your screen there with Elise Preston in Los Angeles. Good morning to you, Elise. The sun not up yet where you are. So what is LA waking up to, and how did things end last night?
Well, Errol, as you can see where we are right now, it is quiet for the most part, but law enforcement is definitely visual. You can see the streets are blocked off right here in front of the federal building that is also a detention center. And just across that intersection, if we see this tow truck come by, you see guardsmen are on the ready. They have shields and batons standing there to protect that federal building that is a detention center. This is the area that erupted in chaos yesterday, and it continued that way for much of the day into the early morning hours. Now, we were in the middle of it yesterday afternoon when tear gas was set off, when rubber bullets were being fired off into the crowd as hundreds of protesters gathered again, initially peacefully before things turned. You can hear the traffic where we are right now as people are on the way to work. But that was not the case yesterday, because this is the area that hundreds of protesters were actually able to get up on this overpass and then eventually down onto the 101, which is a busy freeway here in Los Angeles.
And Elise, as you know, those National Guard troops are there to protect a federal facility effectively. How did the president's deployment of them, though, change the dynamic over the weekend?
Well, it definitely changed that dynamic, and you could see it yesterday. People were definitely tense as they were out here protesting. There were mostly peaceful protesters, but there were people who were agitated by the response, and they were also agitating the guardsmen. We have heard from California Governor Newsom, who has said that this response would incite some bad things here in Los Angeles.
All right, we'll watch that closely. Elise Preston with the latest in LA. Elise, thank you. Now, in President Trump's memorandum requesting the National Guard, he said the protests in LA, quote, constitute a form of rebellion against the government. However, he stopped short of calling it an insurrection.
Are you prepared to invoke the Insurrection Act?
Depends on whether or not there's an insurrection. No, but you have violent people, and we're not going to let them get away with it.
CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Sganga has an update for us from the White House and joins us now. Nicole, good morning to you. Tell us more about what President Trump is saying, is his opinion about what unfolded this weekend.
Yeah, good morning, Errol. Well, if President Trump was refraining from using the word insurrection yesterday overnight, he changed his mind, alleging the protesters we are seeing in LA are paid insurrectionists. Of course, we have no indication that they're being paid, but we have seen his rhetoric increase in its temperature. President Trump also posting on his social media that protesters are getting more aggressive. He said, "Don't let these thugs get away with it," in a message to the LAPD police chief. He also called these lawless riots. We heard him pretty outspoken yesterday against California lawmakers and the governor of that state, calling Governor Newsom incompetent and warning that officials who stand in the way will, quote, face charges. We've not yet seen that, but we've certainly seen arrests overnight. And the president has shown that he is not backing down from some of this very strong and even aggressive rhetoric in this tone, Errol.
Just looking at some of the footage from damaged vehicles, California Governor Gavin Newsom is now calling on the president to rescind the troops. But he said he spoke with Trump on Friday before all of this, and there was no talk then of National Guard deployment. How rare is it for a president to send in federal troops without a request from that state's governor?
Yeah, it's extremely rare, Errol, and you can call it the Insurrection Act or not the Insurrection Act, but Title 10 U.S. Code 12406 is really the call-up authority to the Insurrection Act, and it boils down to the President of the United States federalizing the National Guard in this deployment of 2,000 troops. And that has only happened 30 times in our nation's history, and it is increasingly more rare in modern times. The last time we saw this happen was during the LA riots. Of course, that was at the express request of the California governor at this time, or at that time, rather. At this time, President Trump defying the California governor to send in those troops. The last time we saw the federalization of the National Guard without the express request of a governor was back in 1965. That's, back when they were used to protect civil rights marchers who were marching from Selma to Montgomery. So this is extremely rare.
All right, Nicole Sganga at the White House with that historical comparison. Nicole, thank you.